Hey guys, I think I have this working this time, and hopefully we're streaming this live to 4 different platforms. So it should be able to find us on this on Facebook, YouTube, Periscope, and Float. I'm going to try to share these links here for us so I can figure out how to pull them up for you. Okay, I think this may do it. I'm going to share these links on the Telegram group so you guys can see it there and join on in. I think that's going to work out. All right, I guess I'm going to probably have to figure out how to save those links. You can probably just find this anyway on the Facebook group if you have joined us there. I'm going to have to figure out how to get these links to all of these pages so you can see the YouTube and for the crypto crowd get on Float with us. So I want to start off by thanking you for watching this video, and I hope that you are as inspired by these new technologies as I am. I'm very excited to StreamYard link for those willing to do it. Just had a request. This Telegram works by far as the best way to communicate directly with me. Since this is being broadcast on 4 different platforms, it's kind of hard for me to watch any comments on all of them unless you come to the StreamYard. I'll probably pull up Facebook and share the StreamYard. See if my stream lets me. The one of the reasons that I'm testing out and using this StreamYard tool is that I want you guys to also be able to use it for your own streaming, so you can broadcast simultaneously in a simulcast to up to 8 different platforms if we can figure out how to get it to work. I'm now in the group and it does not seem to be showing that I am live there. I do not know if it's even reaching me. This is kind of tricky. I don't know why it's not showing me. Oh, maybe there it is. Here we go. I can leave a comment with a link to StreamYard. I think I'm getting feedback that it seems to be working. In at 3. All right, can you hear me? Are you there?
Yeah.
You go by Alexander.
Yeah.
Is the stream a little less laggy for you today than it was yesterday?
Oh, yeah, much less.
Okay, I do have my VPN on, so if it starts to not work right, I could probably turn that off, and that may speed up the stream from my end a little better.
Okay.
I wanted to test it with it on just because that's a general protocol to always use VPN, so I figured I'd start right that way and then turn it off if I had to afterwards. So
Sure.
thanks for joining. I appreciate taking time out of your day. I'm going to go ahead and start with a little bit of introduction because I realized even yesterday that I didn't go into much of my background. So, and a lot of people, even if they do know me from the last 30 years, like, they don't know all of my history. There's a unique path that has led me to become a crypto banker that is pretty much started from my early childhood. I've been realizing so much of my personal history has prepared me for the last 4 decades really, to understand and operate as a crypto banker, basing my entire life on a Bitcoin standard. I'm moving my business operations now onto a Bitcoin standard, which has to level up my game quite a bit because business bank accounts and business entities and compliance issues are a whole nother challenge when you move into operating as a business. There's additional privacy benefits that come from doing this, and that's part of what was my unique background, because there probably aren't any. I can't imagine there's anybody else out there that has had the unique experience I did of being a child of high school dropouts that sacrificed years of their life to fight a court battle to get a court settlement over a medical malpractice lawsuit. From 9 to 13, we were in legal battles trying to get the lawyers to for the doctor that basically didn't do his job and sent me home early because he was tired and didn't want to deal with it, and it nearly killed me. My appendix burst because this doctor just sent me home on a Saturday night, felt my stomach, said, "You have gas, go home." Monday, I went to the pediatrician and ended up under the emergency room knife within hours. I ended up bedridden for a month with stitches in my stomach for 3 months. They dragged out this for 4 years, and I ended up at 13 becoming the beneficiary of a trust with a 2.5-year bond that was purchased in my name, and a local bank manager made the trustee of my trust. Almost everyone that ever gets to become a beneficiary of a trust or be a participant in any of these trust organizations come from money. They come from families with money. People around them use these entities and have for hundreds of years, and they pass this information on directly to themselves. I came from high school dropouts that were wage slaves barely keeping us afloat, and I learned before I was even 18, I learned to not trust the banks, because when my note rolled over when I was 15 and a half, the bank trustee illegally gave my parents access to this trust interest. When the 2.5-year note rolled over, that interest should have rolled over again a second time for me by the time I turned 18. And this had all been put into a trust because even the courts recognized that my own parents couldn't be trusted to not steal this money, and that to make sure that I got my reward for the suffering that I had, my capital was put into a trust that by the time I turned 18, it turned into 53,000 cash. So I ended up getting to go off to college as a scholarship level pitcher with 50 grand in my savings account. And because of that, a year later, I ended up going to school, summer school, voluntarily because my money was running out. And I discovered that no one around me knew anything about money and how it worked and could tell me what to do with it. So I ended up taking macroeconomics at the local community college and discovered at 19, back in 1989, the fractional reserve banking and how rigged and immoral the world is, based on this system that gives some people the ability to create what we call money, but it's actually currency. Money keeps its value over time. Currency does not. And history shows fiat currencies always go back to their intrinsic value of zero. And that's what's starting to happen now. We're watching a controlled demolition of this fake money regime that's been in existence for 2-3 generations now. And they're purposefully bringing down this house of cards on purpose so that they can capture wealth in the process. The trading is often the movement of capital and wealth from dumb money to smart money, and that's what's happening in the world right now. I'm trying to provide a message of hope to those of you that don't see hope for your careers as live performers, because the part of collapsing everything has made it so we're not allowed to gather in person and rub elbows with our peers. And this has made every live performer that depends on sharing their arts at scale with a live audience unable to reach that audience and monetize the skills they spent a lifetime acquiring. These venues that have invested all of their time, energy, and money for years, and many times their entire lives, creating these venues so we could go enjoy this live music, have 9 out of 10 times over the last year lost their entire business. If they've managed to stay open, they're hanging on by the skin of their teeth. This solution can enable an entirely new level of freedom for everybody that knows how to use it. I can't even begin to imagine the ways that people are going to come up with to apply this technology to gain sovereignty over their own money streams. What I'm realizing is this allows anyone that has earned trust within a reputational network to directly monetize that reputation, to allow your trusted networks to reward you for sharing valuable content that they appreciate. This is something that we can now cut out every and all middlemen. When we can live stream and multicast to 5 to 8 different platforms and independently get paid directly from our audience to our own devices, independent of every one of those platforms, they can't hold that over our head. They can't shut off our money flow because they don't like what we're saying. We gain control of our content by gaining control of how our audience rewards us for sharing it. If we're dependent on the platforms that are sharing this content and the money streams coming through their advertisers, we don't actually work for the audience. We don't work for ourselves. We work for the audience. We're taking our valuable content as a creative producer and using that as bait to draw in our fan base that we are trying to support and share our gifts with, and using our gifts as bait on the hook to bring them in to feed them to the advertisers. This is not a healthy system. This is a broken business model that does not have to play out like that any longer. We can now directly share our valuable content, whether it's a podcast, whether it's a live theater performance, whether it's a live or recorded musical performance, through any one of these number of tools that are just now coming available to us. I'm exploring and introducing as many of you to these handful of first movers in this industry right now. It takes a collection of these tools to really make the full benefits of any one of them. Part of what's unique about this ecosystem is that everyone is adding value to the entire system whenever they create any solution. So instead of Venmo competing with PayPal, competing with Cash App or Square, whenever Strike improves its value offering, that also improves the usefulness of the Fold app. And same with Breeze and Sphinx. These wallets are all interactive, all adding value in their own way to this collective ecosystem, and the money being changed and moved between all of these software providers is interoperable. These record-based, the ledgers is all that these private wallets are. It's a private record kept offline. It's because of that more efficient and potentially more private if we know what we're doing and we're using trusted nodes to keep this ledger, perhaps our own self-hosted node ideally if we're a more advanced player, that we don't have to trust any third parties. We can pretty much attain sovereignty over our data if we know what we're doing. Before this can actually work to our benefit, though, we have to understand how to protect all of our data. And this means not just your money, but also your email addresses, your passwords, your IP addresses. All of this can be used by bad actors with and without badges to actively track and trace and hunt down your capital and try to steal it from you. If you don't know what you're doing, you can find out the hard way where these hidden rocks are beneath the waterline. Many of the crypto wealthy that have come before you have already experienced these crashes on the rocks, and if you know where to look, you can see the historical record of their ship left in pieces. I'll be sharing some of these stories with you as I go over the specific tools. One of the benefits of becoming a crypto banker is that we automatically begin to value all of our data more. When it's just pictures of our kids, our food, our family members, ourselves that we're sharing, and it's just text or even locations we're sharing, it's not so valuable because there's no opportunity cost lost if that data is stolen. If your private keys and access to them are stolen, there's potentially very high opportunity cost. If you lose this data and it gets corrupted, you can lose everything. It's an unforgiving realm with no takebacks. So if you do not learn before you act, your actions can move you backward instead of forward financially. That's part of what I'm trying to help you guys with, because if I help you buy and earn and acquire and store your crypto, your Bitcoin, preferably if you know what you're doing, then you don't and you don't know how to protect it. It's asking to just be spanked. It's leaving your assets out there for somebody to spank your ass and take everything that you've earned and put in there. This has happened countless times in many different ways. I've been collecting stories over the years that I'll be sharing with you guys about how this happens. Um, Private key management is an ongoing challenge, and because of this, because we're early movers and this is not so easy, that's where the reward is. When this is easy for everyone and there is no risk, there will not be the reward on the other side from your investment and your earnings on these storing your capital in this premier asset class. Michael Saylor calls Bitcoin the apex asset of the world. It's better than any stock or bond or real estate or Forex or any other asset, precious metal that you can possibly own right now. The smartest money on the planet is recognizing this. Literally, the rocket scientists, Elon Musk and Michael Saylor, it's an MIT aeronautical engineer. These guys, the smartest people on the planet that also understand money and physics. They're basing their entire business on a Bitcoin standard, and they're making more because of it than running their actual business. The whole world is starting to learn from this, following their example, and beginning to move their businesses into this solution. And I'm trying to help both the high-level musicians who have an existing audience and the street-level musicians who have an audience but not as much resources to work with. They may have a fan base they've accumulated or are still building and need a way to directly monetize it while they're growing. This solution can help. I want to start going over this slide deck here to share with you guys some of these foundations. I see you just joined us here. Welcome, Michael. Glad you're able to make it. Oop, I guess I got to add you to the stream. There you go. Welcome. Glad you're able to make it today. I'm going to go ahead and start screen sharing for the slide deck that I went over some yesterday, but I'm going to go over again today. Let me see. Since that recording didn't take and not many people managed to join us, I'm going to pull up these slides because I found it I started from scratch a few years ago when it came to cybersecurity, and I expect that many others are in the same place. I never used a VPN. I didn't use a password manager. I'd never heard of two-factor authentication, let alone multi-factor authentication. These basic cybersecurity tools never crossed my mind. Nobody around me used them until I got into crypto. Now that I've been in the crypto realm for years, these things are pretty much standard operation for everybody in the crypto realm. And it becomes assumed that this is just how you do it. And some of these processes are not so obvious at first, and there are some mistakes that are known in the realm, but not necessarily the new entrance to it. So I'm going to go over some of those today. Excuse me. So basically, our Bitcoin and all of our cryptocurrencies have become a form of language. It's a monetary language of value, and it can be communicated through any medium that we can share any language. This could be, we can share our public wallet addresses through any means of communication we have, any text messenger, any email address. All you need to do is send a screenshot or a copy and pasted public wallet address, and they can send money to you. When you're doing this and you're transmitting this data, you're going to need to protect the rails that you transmit it on, because you not only have to protect it at rest when it's sitting on your devices. Whenever you're communicating it through the internet, it can be picked up by third parties if you don't know what you're doing. If you haven't set up proper protective measures to armor up your vault and protect your digital data, then you're going to get spanked. And people are going to know when you're moving it, and they're going to find it, trace it back to its source, and they're going to find a way to steal it. These assets are under perpetual attack at all times when we're online, and we need to up all of our online operations if we're going to be able to protect our personal and business treasures. This starts by implementing the same strategies that we've already been using in the physical realm. When I worked as a backstage actor for the airports, I was a ramp agent. I had access to the planes because I was loading and unloading the luggage, helping put the gas, turn the air AC on. To gain access to the secure areas of the airport, I had to have my PIN number and my physical ID card. Without both, the card that I had and the PIN that I knew, I was not getting through these secure doors. We're doing the same thing when we're protecting our online data by using a password manager and an authenticator. There are various benefits to using the different types of password managers and authenticators. Almost always, if it's more convenient, it's going to be less secure. So we're trading off moving on this scale between convenience and security at all times. When we make any of our decisions, we have to evaluate where we need to be on the scale for that particular operation. Across all of our accounts, we want to avoid creating a honeypot. We don't want to have one piece of data that can give access to multiple accounts. This means not only avoiding reuse of your passwords, it means avoiding reuse of your email addresses. So you not only don't want to use the same password for every email address, you don't want to use the same email address for every exchange account that you create an account with. Every time you create an exchange account, and if you're smart, every time you interact with your banks and have your bank accounts connected to an email, you'll use a dedicated email address that you create just for that operation. Otherwise, somebody may end up gaining access to that one email address and use that to recover the data and control of all of your exchange accounts, all of your bank accounts, all of your social media accounts. Most people don't realize whenever you use the same email address on Facebook and you give that email address to anybody else anywhere on the internet, there are search databases that allow them to use that email address to find your Facebook profile and everything about you that you shared publicly with just because you gave your email address to make a purchase online. They can gain access to all this data about you. if you quarantine your email addresses and don't use the same ones, you avoid this risk. If you use a password manager, you can organize securely created, highly encrypted email passwords that then are automatically input in each of these email and exchange accounts. So that all you have to remember is one password and maybe a handful, because the smart players will also use a password to protect their hardware at home. So you'll use encryption to protect your home device. The more advanced technical players will use a self-hosted password manager on their own desktop device, which is indeed more secure, but it's less convenient because you have to have higher technical skills. There's more room for user error when you don't have experience with them, and there's less convenience because you're not able to use it on your mobile devices. It is, and across all of your browsers, like you can with a cloud-based password manager like LastPass. So LastPass has a free account. It requires only an email address and then one master password, and then you can, behind that encrypted firewall, it's so well built that LastPass does not have access to your password. It's kept in your device, in your devices, with an encryption key that they do not have access to. So they cannot, even when asked, hand over the key to your kingdom, passing your master password over to any three-letter agency that asks. They can't do it because they're not able to. If they're not able to, they cannot be forced to. This is, for most of the intermediate and beginner level tech players, the more practical solution and more functional even for those using a desktop encryption process would benefit from also having a more public cloud-based. One of the protocols we use is to have more than one of everything. It makes sense to have a password manager for your more public operations and have a different password manager for your more private operations. It's less accessible and more secure, and that's where your higher value assets are protected. That way, if somebody gains access to your LastPass master password, usually because of your weak operational protocols, this ends up being used to access all of your accounts in LastPass. But if your high value accounts are on your device, because you don't access them as often and it's kept with a separate password manager, they don't get access to your retirement and your investment. They only get access to your petty cash, your business savings, maybe your speculative trading at most. I'm sharing in this slide deck at the end a video that goes over how to securely create a password that is easy to remember. I'm trusting these specialists in the encryption realm, and when this is how Andreas Antonopoulos does it for himself, the guy that literally wrote the book on mastering Bitcoin. It's been in the tech realm for his entire life. 30 years now, he's been watching and using and developing skills in this industry. His personal protocol he discusses in that video is to, instead of having a bunch of caps and lower caps and numbers and symbols that you have to try to remember, just use 4 random words that don't normally get connected in a sentence and keep them all lowercase. Don't use any numbers, don't use any symbols. All you have to do is remember these 4 words. And because the number of characters in these 4 words is going to be so long, that's going to create enough level of variability and uncertainty to make your encryption strong enough. You can add more words for the higher level security protocols. For, say, like your home password device manager, you might want to use 6 or 8. For the one that you access on LastPass, you might only need 4. It just depends on your personal risk profile. and that's an individual assessment everybody has to make. What we all face is an ongoing and constant challenge to avoid and minimize risks of human error. The weakest link in all of blockchain technology is the human element. We minimize this by using copy pastes rather than typing in protocols. We also bookmark our websites so that we don't end up mistakenly going to a phishing website because somebody slipped in an address that looked like the one we were going to, but was a little bit different. And instead, we typed in our password to our exchange account to a fake website. These phishing attacks can be avoided by bookmarking the site whenever you create your exchange account. You also do want to avoid trusting any of your browsers. Whichever and all of them that you're using, any and all, are going to be less secure than your dedicated password manager. You can install, and it's part of why I like the convenience of LastPass, because you can install an extension for LastPass in pretty much any browser you're going to use. I have it installed on all of mine because it makes it easy for me to create and save and store my passwords in a manner that's available across all of my devices. So any website I go to on my Android, my Apple phone, my tablet, or my desktop, all those passwords get created and saved in LastPass and are accessible from any and all of these devices. And I don't have to trust any of the browsers to do so. So I've eliminated that risk, that threat vector, by not trusting or using the convenient solution these browsers love to give us. Another problem and risk in this arena is that it's more convenient, but also less secure, and has literally been used effectively to steal millions of dollars from major players in the realm who were basically spanked because they were lazy, arrogant, and naive. Really dangerous combination. Basically, this player kept all of his private keys, all of his altcoin crypto that he'd been given during the big run up during the ICO craze. He ended up with all these altcoins that didn't have wallets to store them. So because he couldn't store them at the time on his hardware wallet, he kept them all on his personal mobile device. The same phone that he used to give the number out to talk to people. And he ended up with literally millions, tens of millions of dollars worth of altcoins on the same phone whose number everybody knew. Some young kid from New York City ended up spanking this arrogant crypto expert who wasn't as expert as he thought. And when he managed to port this guy's phone account through Verizon to his phone, used the SMS-based authentication to gain access to this guy's wallets that he then promptly emptied. These text-based authenticators create a security hole that it exists because all it takes is porting your phone number to a different number and they gain access to that authenticator. It's your number, it's not the device. You don't actually have the number. That number is assigned to you by your service provider. But the actual physical device is what is required when you use the authenticator applications. They provide a one-time password that expires every minute usually, and only shows up on the device that was connected at the time of the creation of this authenticator account. So what you have to do is, whenever you're using this, they will tell you to type in the one-time password, OTP is what it's referred to. And you look on your device under that name, and there will be a 6-digit code that will change every minute. You take this code and type it in, and that verifies that you have in your possession the device that was used when you created that account. The problem and risk that you create when you operate with this protocol is that there is a recovery code that they give you when you create this connection and the encryption between your device and the Authenticator app. Um, Google Authenticator is what most websites are connected with. Because they do not have access to your physical device, it's okay to maybe trust Google for convenience. It's not so much of a security trade-off. There's another popular app called Authy that is often able to be used too. But sometimes just everything's already integrated through the Google Authenticator, so you might end up wanting to have both on your device. The risk vector that people have discovered the hard way that I'm trying to help you guys avoid, and it's part of why I discussed the password manager first, because when you create this connection between your device and the Authenticator app, this code they give you is very long, and it's numbers and letters, and it's very easy to get it wrong when you write it down, and it's very easy to get it wrong when you read it after you've written it down, or for it to be damaged after the fact. It's not as simple as like your 12 words for your mnemonic backups of your crypto wallets. Like, you can't store these, and you're going to need a lot of them. You can't store them effectively in a metal recovery device. So I suggest that whenever you immediately, without fail, upon creation of any of these authenticator integrations with this app and your accounts, as soon as you create it, without fail, do not procrastinate. Copy and paste into a secure note in your password manager. LastPass and pretty much all of these password managers will give you a way to not only secure your passwords, but any notes, any of your financial data. You can store your IDs, you can store your bank account information behind these. It's already the security protocol protecting your entire treasury. So if it's good enough for all of your passwords, it's good enough for your recovery codes on your one-time passwords. It's good enough for your um, credit card numbers, because you're giving out your credit card number, expiration date, security code, and zip code anytime you make any purchase online. You're basically spreading that information around, leaving a digital trail of every purchase you ever make anyway. Keeping it securely accessible in a cloud-based encryption protocol is less risky than giving it to some stranger over the phone or typing it into a website. Um, what I suggest is immediately copy and paste this code into a dedicated note for each of these accounts. So, because if you lose this device, it's something you must have to access your accounts. If you lose it, you break it, you drop it in the lake, it gets stolen, you lose access to your accounts. If you do not have this backup recovery data that they give you at the time of connection with your phone, you cannot easily and quickly recover your account access. This can leave you locked out of your accounts for weeks and take sometimes 2 weeks to get access through Google Authenticator to recover your Authenticator access, which can end up leaving you subject to the market forces moving without you able to do anything. You're basically locked out of all your money for weeks if you make this mistake. So you prevent this and eliminate this threat scenario by backing it all up. It also makes it easier when you get a new phone. You can then go through and change all of these integrations to your new device and off your old device, but you might choose to leave it on your old device and have all of your authentication be on a separate phone than the one you carry around with you. One way to securely increase your entire crypto obfuscation techniques is to not use for your petty cash, your regular spending, any of the known purpose-built crypto hardware wallets. By using a general purpose phone that is just like it's any other phone, that no one necessarily is going to assume that this is holding crypto. Government agents, thieves, general public nowadays are all beginning to recognize and know what a Trezor and Ledger is for. If you have one of those devices, somebody is going to recognize that this is for keeping crypto on it and might hold a lot of wealth on there. So they're going to take it if given the opportunity. If you make the mistake of some leaving the recovery data for that hardware device in the same physical location or close by, and they manage to find both, they just gained access to your entire treasury. One of the ways that we can prevent a lot of this is by also adding what's called a third factor for our authenticator. Instead of just, and it's really it's still a second factor, but it's more. The third factor that it adds is the physical action you have to take, because you not only have to have this device plugged in, but you have to actually push a button on it. So what you do is these physical MFA devices are plug into a USB port into your Apple or your Android phone, and you connect it with your master password. So if somebody has somehow gained access to your master password, if they do not also have this physical device plugged in and push the button, they cannot remotely access any of your accounts hidden behind your master password. You can also integrate this with each and every one of your email and your Exchange accounts, so that even if somebody gains access to just that one particular account, if they don't also have physical possession of this key that they push the button on, they're not going to be able to get in. This means that somebody basically has to be given the keys there by you. If they don't know whether they need these things and know where they are, this little key fob on your keychain, plus your master passphrase, plus the actual email account, plus the actual Exchange account, like nobody's going to be able to gain access to all of this. Does this make any sense? Are you guys hearing me? You can unmute yourselves.
Yeah.
I don't need to mute you.
I was there trying to touch the screen. Yeah, that makes sense. That yeah, this is great. A lot of these things I'm familiar with the concepts, and just to go through and think about how they all work together. Like you mentioned, there's kind of these different, like my friend had showed me the Google Authenticator, and you're showing there's these other ones that also are out there for like having to show the QR code or all that type of stuff. Like that last one you were describing, that's called a 3-step authentication.
Yeah, sometimes it's called a third factor authentication. Multi-factor is what it's usually referred to as. That's the MFA, is the multi-factor. The specific key, I don't know. It's in my toolbox. I've probably shared with you already, but the UB key is the most common one. There's also a Librem key that's a more privacy centric company that's trying to open source all their hardware and software with all of their products, and they have privacy protecting tablets and phones as well as this hardware key. But it's they're more of a new startup, and they're trying to do a whole lot more than just this key. Whereas YubiKey and Yubico that creates these Yuba keys, that's all they do. And they have 3 or 4 versions of it, and that's just their specialty. What this company does. So I tend to, especially when they have a track record and they're specialists and they do just this, I tend to trust them more over somebody that's new that's trying to do a whole lot. In the long run, I do hope that they manage to make all this work with the Librem projects. The Librem 5 is a really great project. A lot of people were hoping, they're in their like 3rd or 4th, 5th iteration right now, and it's starting to become more practical. Integration with Apple and Android software can be challenging because it's more Linux-based phone, so it's more secure but less convenient. There's a real trade-off there that affects us in our daily lives when we make those choices.
Yeah.
So Before I move on, I just wanted to just discuss a few protocols that pretty much need to become like your standard method of operations with everything you do with your crypto and all of your wallets, especially like whether they're Lightning or Bitcoin or ETH or Monero. You want to do pretty much these same standard practices with backing up and testing it as soon as you install it. This means testing not only the wallet's ability to receive and then send, but also your recovery phrase. Because authenticating the data that you wrote down to recover your wallet is essential before you put thousands of dollars of value in the wallet. So we want to practice kind of like the same authentication protocols that PayPal does when you connect it with your bank account. You give them your bank account info and they make sure that's the correct info by sending a small 5-cent transaction to that account. And then you have to tell them how much that transaction was to prove that they sent it to the correct account. That we can do the same thing with our wallets by burning a few dollars on transaction costs just to make sure that this is accurate data. So instead of putting $2,000 into a wallet, put $20 in there first, uninstall the wallet, use your backup recovery data to reinstall the wallet and make sure that $20 is still there. Then you send that $20 out and make sure the send function and everything's working. You've tested it received the $20, it recovered the $20, and then it sent, and you've tested all those basic operations. Once you've done that, you can be more confident and put 2,000, 200,000, 2 million into the wallet, depending on which wallet it is and how you're going to use it. Mm-hmm. One of the protocols, in addition, like on top of all that, when you start to use it, it's built into a lot of the wallets, but it's also something we need to remember when providing these public wallet addresses to anyone. When they have that address, that gives them the ability to check our balance and our historical and future transactions from the wallet we sent those funds to. Mm-hmm. So what we want to do is segregate the wallet address and not even use it with the same customer for multiple transactions. We want to use a different wallet address for each and every transaction, whether it's the same client or not. And this avoids everybody ending up with the same address to the same wallet that they end up being able to basically it avoids creating open book banking where everybody you transact with can see everything about your balances and transaction history. This is a real security risk that people don't necessarily understand when they're using their public wallets. This is eliminated with a few other protocols that are available to basically not have to give out the data that lets somebody do the chain analysis on you and find out what your historical use of that wallet has been. There's a PayNim solution that's integrated into the Bitcoin protocol and only used a handful of wallets. Ideally, the most security focused is the Samurai wallet. That's why I recommended in the segregation of use to using that for like your petty cash, your checking account, because that's you can send and receive from your Samurai wallet without having to give anything but a human readable nickname. And it'll create a new wallet automatically anytime somebody is trying to send to that nickname. So you avoid the public wallet reuse. The other strategy that we all recognize for asset protection from the physical world is to diversify the amount that we store and where we store it according to the threats that we anticipate coming to that storage place. Put it in practical terms, like when I was a delivery driver for my baseball coach in my early 20s, the least secure cash was in my money bag I carried when I made the deliveries to go to somebody's house. I'd start off with change for 20, and after the end of the shift, I might have $150 in it. I was more at risk than everybody else because I was by myself on the street walking up to somebody's house. So I had less money on my person than the store front cash register did, because it had video cameras, it had the front door, it interacted with people coming into the physical site. There was security protocols on the cash register, so it was able to hold a higher value than I carried with me. In the back office, in the floor safe, was the savings from the whole week that accumulated. It was about to be made on Friday evening as a deposit in the bank on Friday afternoon. That was kept even more hidden and more secure and accessed by even fewer people because it held the highest amount. The other protocol that comes from the military and pretty much any survivalist ends up learning. If you're a sailor, if you're a military guy, if you're a backcountry hiker, you quickly learn that things fail. And if you only have one of it, you might as well have had nothing, because when it fails and you don't have a backup, you're screwed. And that's why two is considered one. Experience teaches that even backups fail, and ideally you have three, and that's enough. You backed up your backup. This applies to our private key storage. So, and even to yourself, because if you are the only one that knows all of the data that's needed to access your entire estate, it's lost if anything happens to you. None of your descendants, none of your children and grandchildren or loved ones gain access to your crypto if you get hit by a bus and you never trusted anybody with the details about what accounts you had where and how to access those accounts. So it's a pretty lonely place to be to not have even one other person you trust. So it's actually, I think, healthy for us all to figure out who that one or two people might be and establish that trust with them and let them know that you trust them at that level, and let them know how to StreamYard is logging them out. I guess I lost it. There it is. All right. Hopefully you're back in now, Alexander. Looks like it. Okay, so gonna move on to, because it's related, is 3 is enough, sort of, and it's actually, that's just for your backups. So that, what that means is, like, it could be a 2 of 3 multi-signature wallet setup. That could be you having your wallet on a dedicated hardware device with the backup key and somebody else knowing where that backup key is. Could be your third. You might have a paper copy and a metal copy that are of varying degrees of accessibility. You might have your paper copy more accessible for yourself, and your metal version is fire and water resistant, maybe buried somewhere, hidden somewhere in another location. What you want to avoid is having all of them in one place at one point in time. That creates a single point of attack that, like, if somebody happens to get a hold of it all at once, you're going to be lucky if you ever get any of your money back again. I have firsthand testimony from one of my peers in this industry who recently, while traveling in Mexico, just had some of the government agents take his treasures and ledger and his notebook that had his recovery keys, and he was wise enough to not leave all of the words for his mnemonic phrase in the notebook, but he didn't have a backup to the words that were in the notebook. So when the government agents stole his notebook and his treasure and ledger, they couldn't access the funds because they didn't have the one of the 23 words, but he couldn't access the funds to recover them in another wallet either. So these coins have been burned effectively. No, he's not going to hand over that one word to the coppers. The government agents are not going to be able to extract this one word that they need from him. So basically, all of these coins are never going to be accessed by anybody ever again. They were effectively burned as if you put a match to them. This is why we want to back up everything, including ourselves, and make sure that our backups have the complete data. Because if, like in this case, your data is stored incomplete, it's basically wasted. It's if you don't have all the data, you might as well have none of the data. It's kind of like if you're not in first place, you're last. It's an all or nothing sort of solution. Your backups have to be complete, otherwise you just create another vector of risk. This goes for trying to encrypt your mnemonic phrases that are already the keys to your encryption. So all you do is add another level of complexity and another point of human error when you do this. What I'm suggesting we need to do with all of our wallets is that I find most everybody in the crypto realm do not talk about. Everybody tries to make this simple, like we're just dealing with a bank account. The reality is we're not just dealing with a bank account in our pocket. We have an entire banking system. We need to start thinking like a bank manager. We need to start thinking like the bank security guard, the bank credit manager, the bank teller. And we need to understand how to operate all of these roles that we've been outsourcing to the bankers. You do not have one account with a bank. You have cash in your pocket, you have a checking account, you have a business account, you might have a checking and a business account for checking in a savings account for your business and your personal operations. You might have an investment account. You might have a retirement account. You might have some gold and silver stashed in the backyard. All of these same protocols we need to apply to creation of our parallel virtualized banking system that we're trying to take control of. Part of this means figuring out how to integrate all these solutions and determining where to use them in our overall strategy. I kind of go over how that works or could work with these suggestions of possible uses for these wallets here. I'm not going to go into the bottom half of the list. Those are more just general use for Bitcoin operations or very much any crypto operations. Most all of these, not all of them though. Samurai, I know for sure. Cold Card, I know for sure. I think Cobalt and EliPal are multi-coin wallets. I know Trezor and Ledger is. Some Edge is a multi-coin wallet. AirGap, I'm not sure. I know it's Bitcoin, but I'm not sure if it's multi-coin. And these first few, the Strike and Fold, the Blue Wallet, and the Breeze and Sphinx are all Lightning wallets, and that's what I'm going to be focusing on for us today and this whole week, because I'm finding there's a knowledge gap that is happened within the entire crypto realm, because this industry moves very fast and a lot happens quickly. And people that looked at the Lightning Network 12 to 18 to 24 months ago have no idea how much it's improved and how many solutions have come around and how much better they function since then. They made their decision based on the first few iterations that the protocol was broken, when it was just the interface with the protocol that was brand new and was still being worked out. We're now in beta testing of some of these solutions that are just now becoming available. When you install some of these wallets, they will warn you of that this is beta test. They're going to let you know that you may lose all of your funds. We don't know what we don't know. There may be 0-day risks with a unknown, undiscovered weakness in any of these wallets. So that's why the general strategy when testing out all of the Lightning Network and using any of it, we refer to it as hashtag reckless. We're the lunatic fringe of the lunatic fringe. But Bitcoin and crypto are moving into early adoption phase now that players like Tesla, Elon Musk, and Michael Saylor and MicroStrategy and their peers are starting to move into Bitcoin. Those are signs of early adoption. But the lunatic fringe, it's the cutting edge evolution of this technology, is really happening in many ways on the Lightning wallet networks. But they are not yet being coordinated in people's operations except by like the most high level players. So I'm trying to bring you guys quickly into this realm, jumpstart your security protocols, and introduce you to the state of the art tools and show you how they're being used by the all-star players in the game. And this starts by figuring out how to acquire your Lightning Bitcoin. And that's where, and you don't want to acquire it until you have a way to spend it. So that's where these USD on and off ramps come in. Strike and Fold are not directly competing, but they're about to overlap in some of their services. They kind of like Strike works right now as the on ramp and Fold as the off ramp, whereas Blue Wallet is more for moving between Lightning and Bitcoin. Breeze lets you also do some of the Lightning to Bitcoin on and off chain transactions. So there's some overlap because Strike is also about to create its own point of sale physical prepaid Lightning debit card that'll compete with Fold and probably have some different features and ways they make it work and way they monetize it, prices they charge. This is a very highly competitive realm. These, I guess, 6 wallets I'm listing, right? 5 wallets I'm naming right here are effectively the first movers. They're currently the latest and greatest solutions in these particular niches, but there's a whole wave of people following along behind them with competitors. Each one of them is starting to add the other's solutions. So before long, we should expect like streaming capabilities to start to show up in the Blue Wallet, and as well, I think even Blue Wallet has its own on-ramp portal to buy on your debit card there. There's trade-offs in convenience and security with all these choices. This page I'm going over and sharing the links for the different password managers. This data is taken directly out of my Google Doc that I share with everybody through the email address you give me. If you don't have it, make sure to message me directly to make certain that I share it with you. Some of you probably don't. I'll be dealing with that later this afternoon, going through all the emails that I've gotten this last week and add you guys to the list. Those that have already been part of my networks, you've maybe already seen this. These are only 7 out of 200 different links I include in this toolbox. These are basically a snapshot of a couple of drawers in this massive toolbox I've compiled for us all to use. These are the resources here that go into the Strike app and the Fold app. You can reach them in their main page, their Twitter pages. Each of them, like one's using Discord, one's using Slack. Neither one of these 2 apps are on Telegram. The other 3 apps are actively on Telegram and are pretty responsive with their customer service. I'm actually dealing with someone from Sphinx in a Telegram chat right now that just helped me recover from a mistake made when setting up my wallet. A mistake that you guys won't have to make because I just made it for us. That's part of the advantage of letting somebody else carve the trail, is you don't have to step on the rocks and get cut by the thorns that they did, because they used a machete and cleared the path up the mountain for you. That's what I've been doing with all of these wallets for the last few years. I've literally installed and created dozens and dozens of wallets and exchange accounts. So even though I'm just now creating some of these for myself with you guys this week, I've done this dozens of times. I've been through the process. I'm really comfortable with it all. Any problems I encounter along the way, I know how to work it out, and I can help you guys do it too. Watching me actually go through this process may help you. So tomorrow I'm going to go ahead and stream the screen share of me actually setting up and my first strike account and doing the simple but cheap. Actually, I'm going to try to do fold and strike if that goes well. I believe the way it works is fold has a prepaid card. It's the lower level that costs $31. Going to go ahead and get that card live tomorrow. You guys can watch me go through that process, and we'll see how strike goes. I don't exactly have a bank account or a credit union account. I just keep a prepaid debit card account, so that may or may not be enough. I do have one bank account that I could possibly connect through Strike, and I may have to use that. Neither one of these are yet available for business accounts or non-U.S. citizens, so these are currently only available for U.S. individuals. But they're basically no more difficult or challenging or risky than creating the net spend account, the Green Dot card, the Venmo, Square, PayPal. It's all the same process. And it's mandatory because all of these interact with the banks, and the banks are required by law to, in the name of protecting us against fraud, collect all of our personal data and have full transparency in all of our financial operations, just so that they can protect us against the inherent fraud risks built into their system. Because of us having to hand out the keys to all of our bank withdrawals with our credit card or debit number, the expiration date, the security code, and the zip code every time we make a purchase, everyone that we hand this information to can then make unauthorized purchases. And so they have to have these protocols in place to protect against the built-in security weaknesses. There's no way around this, because you have to hand over so much data for anybody to accept the payment. You're giving them the ability to withdraw more than they're supposed to. This requires these nanny state custodians to protect these accounts, because they basically cannot settle in finality. And that is what we consider a feature and not a flaw in the whole Bitcoin realm. It places the responsibility on you to get the transactions right, on you to custody your assets properly, and on you to verify that your trading partners all have the assets that they're sending you. This verification is what we've been paying the bankers to do for us, for our counterparties to verify that we have the funds, to verify that those funds have been transferred and are then available in their account, and to verify that we're authenticated and authorized to send these. That's what we're paying our bank to do and their bank to do, so that we can transact with another party. Each of us have multiple parties in between us. When we're dealing with the Lightning Network, the Bitcoin network, and all of these apps, and we're streaming money and sending it directly from one device to another, we were not having to deal with any of these delays and fees and data risks. Right? They can basically not only they can track and trace and censor us when we go through these banks, and this basically gives them the ability to control the tap. Right? They can shut it off anytime they want for any reason they decide. I'm dealing with this right now with my new bank account, with my very first customer trying to pay me through this bank account, but I'm finding Stripe is requiring me to basically dox my client. They not only want me, before they give me access to these funds, they've already taken out of her account and held for 10 days. I have to send them an invoice that she signed with a contract. I have to send them a copy of a social media page that includes the email address that I used to sign up for my fucking Stripe account. And then I need to send a Yelp review or another review from another public website when this is my very first client. I can't have any reviews. I'm not going to get a good review if I don't finish this job with a client, if I don't get paid. Stripe is basically holding me hostage and my client's money hostage and forcing me to hand over all this information they do not fucking need to know. These guys are bullies that are thinking that they can force these restrictions and demand this data from everybody. And this is not the case. We have another option. I charge 20% more for making me deal with these intermediaries that cause delays and take fees and force me to hand over data I don't want to. I've been charging 25% more. Actually, I think I've been doing a 20% inconvenience fee for forcing me to deal with these banksters. And I think I'm going to probably move that to 30% more because the fucking headaches just are not worth it. Anybody who runs any sort of bank, any business that deals with these banksters, as I call them, experiences this every month, every week. Right? And these chargeback risks are significant for people that are dealing with the general public. The storage facility that I kept a sailboat parked at for a while told me that they literally end up with 20% of their monthly withdrawals taken out of their account every month for chargebacks. 1 out of 5 of the payments made for the rent on the storage facility without any warning for up to 90 days later can be taken out of their account. That is an obsolete business model, and we have a choice now. This fixes all of that. If you start watching these videos here, you'll get some of the foundation necessary to build your own banking standard on a Bitcoin basis. You can create your own arrangements for your own wallets and your own interfaces with the legacy banking system, because that's where most of the money is. That's where we're trying to move capital from and extract it from this corrupted money into uncorruptible money in the form of Bitcoin. And to do so, we're going to really slow ourselves down if we're only interacting face to face with our peers and we're trying to do it privately with cash. If we're going to do it at scale, if we're going to do it in large amounts, we're going to have to create proxy agent business entities that interface with the legacy banking system. And for some of us, we're going to occasionally need to still interface at least a little bit with personal banking arrangements through credit union accounts or prepaid accounts. I look forward to sharing all this with you guys over the rest of this week as we go deeper into how to use these wallets. I'll share some homework with you right now. The issues I want to address tomorrow are specifically going to be going over how to use some of these wallets and installing some of the other wallets. Right now, I just want you to get started with your password managers if you don't have it, your authenticators if you don't have it, and go ahead and get started with opening your Fold and your Strike accounts. Tomorrow, I'll start off by seeing if you guys have any questions I can answer, any problems you've encountered. Just now about to successfully create my own access the node that I just purchased through Breeze that allows me to create my own tribe to share podcasts with through, actually this was through Sphinx. Breeze does the podcast, Sphinx does more of the chats. And they kind of interact and work together in some ways. I'm kind of gathering that in some ways Breeze is kind of a tribe, a podcast tribe version connection of the Sphinx chat solution. So these all interface and work together, and we're going to be exploring how to make these all work. As I'm diving into how these podcasts work, I'm seeing that it's actually with Breeze, it's going to probably be easier to share recorded content, either by the song or an album or like a concert. So you could have basically a podcast channel that you create that you live stream your music on, and then those recordings can be shared in individual podcast segments. or for a whole concert, say for an hour-long live stream dinner concert, you just have that all as like one podcast episode that people can pay for, or one podcast episode could be just one song. So I just wanted to leave you guys with some ideas of where we're headed and what's coming down the line for us to use these apps in the next few days. I see you're still here with me, Michael. Any questions before I shut down the stream? We've been going for a little while here now. I think I've covered enough for today.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good chunk, Yeah, I'm gonna have to see with these apps, just as far as KYC stuff and just whether I can find a way to access them.
Yeah, it's a real problem for those of us that are more nomadic and don't always have a mailing address. I'm having trouble, like I mentioned last night on the Telegram chat. Like my Gemini account won't let me in because I don't have any bills.
Yeah,
I don't have any utilities. I don't live on the street. So I can't prove my address when I don't have one, and there's nothing coming to a mailbox that I don't have. I'm completely locked. Even my business is locked out of their exchange. That's a case for a lot of musicians. I found it's kind of what helped me recognize this need. Even though I'm not a musician, they've been my peers. I've been operating in the gray economy, not full on black, but in the gray economy. Like my friends have been like drug dealers and prostitutes and back alley musicians and nomads. So it's like I understand their concerns and challenges, and I recognize that I've heard this joke. It's kind of in Austin. It was applied to the musicians. In Steamboat, it was applied to the skiers. In Hawaii and the Big Island, it was applied to the surfers. And I found it hilarious when I started to mention it to my neighbor and his wife, who's a musician. She answered it before I even finished. So the joke is, what do you call a musician without a girlfriend? You know? Homeless. And I've heard it narrowed down, like, what do you call a drummer without a girlfriend? What do you call a guitarist without a girlfriend? It's like homeless. Like, in the ski towns, it's the same thing. It's like, it's a very common theme. Like a lot of musicians are inherently nomadic, and when you're traveling a lot, like a fixed address doesn't help you when you're not there. Like, where are you going to get it forwarded to when you don't know where you're going to be? And it makes it so everyone living that lifestyle is completely locked out of this game. Like, you can't interact with these banking entities unless they like have an address. They have these security protocols that they enforce on all of us. And I'm really excited about helping the undocumented creatives like this, because it feels like this is what Bitcoin was built for. Like, this is what it was designed to allow, like peer-to-peer, permissionless, direct value transfer across the world from an individual to another individual. And I find that really exciting and interesting that it's taken like 12 years.
Yeah.
For Bitcoin to be ready for this capability to just now be launching. Even like if you watch the video I shared with Andreas on, I don't know if you're on the, I specifically mentioned it and talked about it in the Telegram or the Facebook group.
Mm-hmm.
The videos from Andreas from 2016 was one that first introduced me to this coming on the horizon back in 2017. So I've literally been waiting for these apps for 4 years to finally be able to provide like the first inkling of this potential. And there's a wave of others coming right behind it. It's really exciting time. I'm glad to share these solutions with you. Thanks for joining me today.
Yeah,
Appreciate
definitely.
it.
Great. I'm glad to be tuning in.
Right on. Have a good day. Maybe I'll see you again tomorrow morning. I hope you can make it then.
Yep. All right.
Adios.
Later.